I want to talk about a bug that I had with the recurring allocation in Budget Pilot and how I solved it. Well, this bug only happened when you had multiple devices using the same account, and because of how synchronization works, you ended up with some duplicates. So first, let me show you what a recurring allocation is. So here on a budget, I can choose recurring allocation, which will create a record that will cause an allocation to be added every day. So, for example, $15 per day in this case on groceries. But that means, but then there is another feature which is an optional cloud sync. If you are logged in with your Google account, which I'm not in the moment, at the moment, but if you are logged in with your Google account, everything will be synced as upstream for a backup. And if you do have another device on the same account, the same will happen with the other device, and the two devices will be always synchronized, and that works beautifully, also offline. So if you want to insert expenses on one or the other device, and then they go merged and sync together, and there is absolutely no problem because in the code I normally generate UIDs for also unique database IDs for each record inserted as a UUID, which is then converted in base 64 and with padded removing just to keep it short. Um, but then what happens with recurring allocation is that both devices will add the daily recurring allocations and or potentially they could. So what happens is if one device added the allocation and then uploads the synchronization records to the cloud, and the other device downloads the synchronization records before running the recurring allocation, then everything will work because the other device will realize that the allocation were already added, so it will not add them again. However, imagine that they run simultaneously or these devices are simply disconnected from the network, so that what will happen is both devices will generate daily allocations. And then when they connect, they will upload. So each device would download the daily allocation of the other device. Because they have different IDs, it will not, like harmonize and but it will duplicate them. So the solution that I opted for, initially I was thinking, well, how can I elect a master device that is like somewhat responsible of creating those allocations, but it's quite complex. Also, imagine suddenly I lose one device, so the other has to become master. How and if the device is offline, for how long will that device stay master if I don't see it for a whole day or what? So the solution that I opted for was much simpler, which is for recurring allocation only to use some deterministic IDs. So these IDs, I generate them as with the ISO date, and I add substring of the FSID of the budget because the budget's categories themselves are synchronized. That's guaranteed to be the same. And since I take 10 characters out of 20, and even if you have hundreds of categories, the chances of a conflict are imaginably low. So there is no problem at all. So the idea will look like that. So now what will happen is when if the two devices both generate the recurring allocation for the same day, and then synchronize them to the cloud. But when they go replay each other, then it will update the same record, merely maybe updating the timestamp, but everything will stay consistent. So that's it. I wanted to show like the simple solution. So here is where I generate the ID, and then I go and I insert the allocation. Um, and then I have a session ID that is what identifies a particular device, at least for a particular session. And the reason why I have this concept of session is because on the same device, you may connect with a user, then disconnect and connect with another user. You should have a different session ID. Then in here, or even if you know you the same user but you delete all the data, you want to re-download everything. So we need to know it's a different session. Um, so here then it calculates, it computes the allocation and generates a sync record that is then inserted in SQLite, a local database, because then there is an asynchronous process that then polls when the network is available, checks these records on SQLite, those that are not synchronized yet, and uploads them to the cloud. So it works beautifully offline. I just wanted to show you this because I thought this was interesting. See you next time. Bye bye.